Well, hello everybody, and thank you for having me today to read to you. My name is Ken Savage, and I am the Chief Operations Officer for the school district, and I am so excited to have the opportunity to talk to you today about one of my favorite books. This is The Dog from Dingle Who Lost His Bark, and I love this book because it reminds us that sometimes we lose something and we have to face the courage it takes to see that maybe we didn't lose it at all. And it's there inside of us, and we just need the courage to find it. So I hope you enjoy it as much as I do and as much as my children love this book. The Dog from Dingle Who Lost His Bark. There once was a dingle dog who lived by the sea. His life was fun. He was happy as can be. He liked to bark all day. He loved to bark all night. He was a jolly little dog who barked with all his might. But one fine day, when he was playing in the sun, a great big storm came and ruined all his fun. He ran up the beach and raced across the sand. He was the most scared dog in all of the land. The very next morning, when the storm had gone, the dingle dog realized that something was wrong. The storm had stopped blowing and the sun was overhead. So he tried to bark, but only whimpered instead. He thought about the rain and how the night was dark and realized he'd been so scared that he'd lost his bark. He needed to find his bark. Where could it be? He thought that to start, he'd look down by the sea. Down at the water, he heard a moaning song. He thought it was his bark, but he was wrong. It was just a big whale playing in the kelp. So he called out to the whale, maybe she could help. "Excuse me, Mrs. Whale," he said, "I've lost my bark. I lost it during the storm last night when it was dark. I really have to find it. Where could it be? Oh, Mrs. Whale, can you please help me?" "Why, yes, Dingle Dog," sang the whale in her song. "I heard it in the night, but I could be wrong. There near those rocks, I heard such a strange sound. Go look over there, my dear little hound." "Oh, thank you," said the Dingle Dog to the great big whale, and off across the beach he ran, wagging his little tail. Over by the rocks, he heard a clicking sound, so he stopped in his tracks and he looked all around. There was a tiny red crab clicking his claws by a boulder, so the little dog went over and tapped his tiny shoulder. "Excuse me, Mr. Crab," he said, "I have lost my bark. I lost it during the storm last night when it was so very dark. I really have to find it. Where could it be? Oh, Mr. Crab, can you please help me?"
"Why, yes, Dingle Dog," said the crab, clicking his claws. "I heard it last night. I didn't know it was yours. There on those cliffs I heard such a hullabaloo. I hope you find your bark. I really, really do."
"Oh, thank you," said the Dingle Dog. "Thanks a lot." And off across the sand he began to trot. Over by the cliffs he heard a screechy squawking. He thought it was a bark, so instantly stopped walking. He saw a white seagull sitting high up on her nest, so he shouted to the seagull his simple request. "Excuse me, Mrs. Seagull," he said, "I have lost my bark. I lost it during the storm last night when it was so very dark. I really have to find it. Where could it be? Oh, Mrs. Seagull, can you please help me?"
"Why, yes, Dingle Dog," said the screechy, squawky bird. "In the storm last night, that must have been what I heard. There in that cave, I heard such a strange commotion. I wondered what it was. I thought it was the ocean."
"Oh, thank you," said the dog, with a goodbye wave, and off he walked into the big, dark cave. Deep inside the cave, there was a loud, echoing roar. He thought he may have found his bark, but could not be sure. Instead, he found a wise walrus who was wrinkled and old. So he asked about his bark, and this is what he was told. "Why, no, Dingle-Doggy. I have not seen your bark. I expect you think you lost it last night when it was dark. I know all about the storm, and passed by in the night, and I know the wind and waves must have given you a fright." "But you see, Dingle-Dog, you are positively wrong. Your bark is still inside you. It's been there all along. Summon all your courage. Search deep inside your heart. There you will find it, and never will you part." "Oh, thank you, wise walrus," said the Dingle-Dog with a yelp. "I don't know what I would have done without your thoughtful help." The Dingle-Dog thought about what the walrus had said and summoned all his courage and lifted up his head. He thought about the storm that passed by in the night and wanted to bark again with all of his might. So he ran out of the cave with the sun overhead and he started to whimper. But then he barked instead. He barked at Mrs. Seagull and she squawked back from the sky. He barked at Mr. Crab who clicked his claws in reply. He barked at Mrs. Whale, who sang back from the kelp. He barked and he barked to thank them all for their help. The Dingle-Dog continued to live by the sea. His life was fun, and he was happy as can be. He barked in the water, and he barked on the sand. He was the noisiest dog in all of the land. And that is the end. I hope that you follow all of your teacher's directions, but I hope that in your own special way, you allow your bark to be as noisy as it can be every single day, and that you never forget that you always have that bark. You always have that voice. Have a great rest of your day.